My name is Ellie Ardakani. You can find me on LinkedIn and Twitter. I would be more than happy to have a chat. I run a company called Meta Innovation Technologies. The company has two different products, and one of the products is an AI platform for a niche market within the energy sector and mining. So check us out. I would be happy to chat. We have a lot of hirings ongoing most of the time, both on the side of business and also technical. Just follow our page and you would be informed. That's for that. So let's get into it. So we had really two good presentations, and they were kind of like, Parina's talked about more high scale up sort of companies that are building AI products and they are growing. And Lakshmi talked about how we have to make sense of our product before we put it out there, and if it actually solves a problem or not. And it's really interesting because my presentation is pretty much like wrapping up everything else, talking about how to build an AI startup, and should you actually get into it? Should you actually do it? What do I know? Well, I wrote lines of codes and I did my research and I built a product and we commercialized the product. So I know a little bit here and there about commercializing a product, which is an AI product. So let's get into it. So first of all, you heard it tonight. AI is all the rage right now. So everybody has an opinion, everybody talks about it. Which means that it can be kind of hard to cut through the noise and figure out the real questions. Ask the questions like, can I build a new business that leverages an AI product or basis? And where do I start from? So I was hoping to, through my presentation, I'll go through some of these aspects of an AI product. So, we're talking about the hype around the AI, and, sometimes you think that, hey, like, I'm missing out. The fear of missing out, or FOMO, it happens all over the place. It happened with cloud when Adam was talking about it, for sure, the cloud computing. And now it's happening with AI, even though AI has been around for years. I've done my master's degree on AI projects, on neural networks, and that was 11, 12 years ago. So, I mean, it's been around, but right now, because of the power of computing, everything is coming up more often, and companies are thinking more about automation, and obviously it's a good place to be. So there is a hype around AI, but you have to make sure that, you need to know what you're going after if you're actually trying to build an AI product, and based on that, a business. So in many ways, even though AI has been around for a while, we're still in kind of like earliest stages, as Lakshmi was talking about, bringing AI into ed tech, but not thinking about the consequences. Or, we have topics like ethical AI. What is ethical? What is not? How much data should we gather? How much is a breach of privacy? Like all of those things, they're all out there, and it's often not clear, if it's a really good fit for you, for the company that you're trying to build, for a product that you're trying to build, or for your team. And it's kind of like complicating at some points. So you have to make sure that you're not affected by FOMO when you are going toward, AI products and building them. So as I said, in this presentation, I'm going to give you enough information to get us started, and you already have some because of Harina's and Lakshmi's good presentations. But I'll start with very high level talking about AI at a conceptual level without getting into nitty-gritty stuff and getting sidetracked with detailed knowledge. From there, I talked about 4 principles or general steps to go through if you are thinking about building such product. But before we get into that, let's just go through a little bit of the AI basics. To keep things simple, think about AI as a software. It's technically a software that works with input and produces output. The important bit is that it can go from input to output without having explicit instruction on how to get there. And that's what it kind of like makes it super different from the ordinary, analytics algorithms that we would write. Now, when you think about AI products in general, two categories comes into vision. One are, the AIs that they do tasks that are pretty common, and they are needed in different industries, in different contexts. So, like, for example, transcribing, turning spoken speech into written words. And the other ones are the ones that are tackling more unique tasks, like detecting, a set of heartbeat data that shows evidence of, heart condition if the heart is going to fail at some point. So why is it important to distinguish these two? It's because if you're dealing with an AI solution that is going to solve a very common problem that is kind of like global and it's in every industry and it's not niche, you don't really have to reinvent the wheel. And we literally had that sentence in one of the presentations. And that's where you can actually look into Microsoft, Amazon, Google, all these giants out there, IBM, they do have algorithms that can be used. They sell it as a service. You can buy into it. If you can apply it to an industry that is very niche to you, well, good for you. At least you didn't put in all the effort to build it from scratch. So that's a distinction that you need to make at the beginning. Are you solving a problem that is very common, or is it more niche? Is it more unique? If it's unique, then that's the time to think about building a custom AI. So for Meta and the product that we built, we are in energy sector and mining, but the product is applied to a very niche type of data set. And where our AI is different from everybody else is because we know how to deal with the data. We know what the nature of the data is and how to write the algorithms that applies to that data set or type of data set. So now let's think about, if you gone through that practice and you know what sort of AI you're dealing with, what you want to go for. So there are a couple of advices that they can provide here. And this is a very generic 4 steps that you can go through and ask these questions from yourself. So number 1 is test your problem solution fit. And we will go through it a little bit further. The second one is play the data gathering AI building game. The third one is build your product. And the fourth one is develop a means for improving your AI. Now, it is important to know that if you're, and I guess it's kind of like relevant to any sort of a startup with pretty much any solution that you build, you have to find a market for it. And there has to be a market fit for your product. So it doesn't matter if it's a product or you're building a mug or you're building whatever that you're building, it has to have a buyer. So for AR products, before you go too far, it's important to test and be certain that there are people out there that are willing to pay you for what you're planning to build. And that's, it's actually possible to build what you're imagining or your vision is that you're trying to build. You can test, whatever, you can test whether or not you can find people that are willing to pay for that with, building kind of a very lean startup. So the way it works is that, you engage with a bunch of people, you ask them a bunch of questions like discovery calls and meetings, and you ask them if there was such a solution, if if they would use it and if they would pay for it. Not as direct as that, but there are so many methodologies out there that you can start without investing millions of dollars or thousands of dollars, and from the investor money or out of your pocket, to try to build a solution and build a business around it. So importantly, one of the nice things about AI products is that it's not very hard to start. So you can always be resourceful and find the things that are out there and scramble something together, the cheap and dirty solution, and see that if that has a buyer. And then if that has a buyer, we will move on to the next step. So if you in this step, you already reached out to people and you know that your customers exist and how to reach them, hopefully, and you have some confidence in your AI that you can build, so you know that it's buildable. It's time to go out and build your model. So in practice, collecting the data and gathering the data and do the data wrangling is not as easy as people would think. Obviously, that's one of the most fundamental and one of the hardest part of building an AI product and an AI startup. You have to find the data, you have to curate it, and you have to manage the data. And sometimes that's the biggest hardship for solving a problem. Training a model is often demanding on the computer side, but dealing with the data, you have to be the expert in when you're looking at the data sets that you're working with. And that's where, most of the niche products for AI, that's where they are kind of distinguished from more generic AI solutions that are out there, because the people who are dealing with these algorithms are the subject matter experts, and they know what they are doing with that data set and what they want to see. So let's say you pass this point and you go ahead and build your product. High five. That's awesome. One of the things is that, as developers and as scientists, when we are writing our codes and, we slice and dice things and, we Python up everything, we think that, okay, well, the user is going to do the same thing. Well, they won't. And you have to also keep your code a secret because it's technically your trade secret. So you need to package your AI up into a product. And sometimes that could be a little bit of a lengthy process to be able to build something that is user-friendly, it's very intuitive, and it helps your user to use your product without any hassle or without any churn if they are paying for it. So that's one of the important things that you have to have in mind. And then the last one is developing a means for improving your AI. So as you move forward with your product, so let's say you have one client now, after 6 months, you have 5 clients and you're building up your data sets. It's time to use those data sets to build a better model and, use those data sets to tune your model to work better on a larger kind of data repository that you're collecting and you're putting together. That kind of ensures that you have a future with the product, because sometimes people just forget about it. So at this point, you're all set. Hopefully things worked out and you have a very viable solution and people are coming at your door and they are asking for your product. Most certainly, before jumping into anything, do your research and understand what's out there, what exists. Don't spend your time writing tons and tons of algorithms when you can actually just find them, even open source codes, but also the services that provide. There are, I don't know if any of you attended Amazon's exhibitions, but each year, beside the pandemic time, they do have a lot of companies that are coming up and they are showcasing the products that they built on the back of Amazon. So they are just piggybacking with by Amazon, and they don't have a team of 100 data scientists and AI engineers and data engineers. They're the team of 10, but they were smart enough to put together a solution that runs on somebody else's engine, and they are making enough money to pay for the services that they are getting, but also enough to be profitable. So that would be something that worth considering, of course.